This source is from Nature.com. New fossils from Jebel, Irhoud, Morocco, and the Pan-African origin of Homo sapiens. Fossil evidence points to an African origin of Homo sapiens from a group called either Homo heidelbergensis or Homo rhodesiensis. However, the exact place and time of emergence of Homo sapiens remains obscure because the fossil record is scarce and the chronological age of many key specimens remain uncertain. In particular, it is unclear whether the present-day modern morphology rapidly emerged approximately 200,000 years ago among earlier representatives of Homo sapiens or evolved gradually over the last 400,000 years. Here we report newly discovered human fossils from Jebel Irhoud, Morocco, and interpret the affinities of the hominids from this site with other archaic and recent human groups. We identified a mosaic of features including facial, mandibular, and dental morphology that aligns the Jebel Irhoud material with early or recent anatomically modern humans or more primitive neurocranial and endocranial morphology, in combination with an age of 315, give or take 34,000 years, as determined by thermoluminescence dating. This evidence makes Jebel Irhoud the oldest and richest African Middle Stone Age hominid site that documents early stages of Homo sapiens clade in which key features of modern morphology were established. Furthermore, it shows that the evolutionary process behind the emergence of Homo sapiens involved the whole African continent. All right, I asked the question, what difference is there between the Jebel Irhoud fossils and modern humans? An AI overview gave this. The key difference between the Jebel Irhoud fossils and modern Homo sapiens is that while the Jebel Irhoud fossils have facial features very similar to modern humans, their brain case is more elongated and considered archaic in shape, indicating an earlier evolutionary stage compared to the more rounded brain case of modern humans. Essentially, they had modern-looking faces with a more primitive skull shape. Key points about the Jebel Irhoud fossils. Facial features resemble modern Homo sapiens with similar facial structure and teeth. Brain case, elongated and not rounded as in modern humans, considered a more archaic feature. Significance. These fossils are considered among the oldest Homo sapien remains, providing evidence that our species evolved across Africa with a mixture of modern and archaic features. This image illustrates the difference between an archaic Homo sapien skull and a modern Homo sapien skull. They are different and represent different stages in the evolution of our species. My opponent is trying to insist that a modern human group like the Berbers are archaic Homo sapiens, which is totally incorrect. This source is from Botanica.com, dealing with the Upper Eurasian industry, an archaeological period associated with the ancestors of the Berbers. The Upper Eurasian industry, North African stone tool industry dating from the late Worm, last glacial period, about 16,000 years ago. The formal presumption that the industry extended it to Spain explains the prefix Ubero in the name. The industry does bear a close resemblance to the late Magellanian culture in Spain, which is broadly contemporary, circa 15,000 BC. Subsequent study, however, suggests that the Upper Eurasian industry is derived from a Nile River Valley culture known as Helfin, which dates from about 17,000 BC. Human remains are rather frequently associated with Upper Eurasian artifacts, and it appears that the industry belonged to a group of people known as the Mexter al-Arabi race, considered to have been a North African branch of Cro-Magnon man. The Upper Eurasian industry, much more widespread than the Mesolithic Caspian industry, 8,000 to 2700 BC, is found along the entire coastline of North Africa and inland, as well as in Morocco, Tunisia, and the Cyrenaica Balka region of Libya. It is characterized by a great many small back blades and, unlike the Caspian, an absence of borings, a sort of chisel probably used for working wood. This is the era associated with the Ubero-Eurasians. We've covered the Ubero-Eurasian industry and its period of archaeology. Here's the AI overview on the DNA of the Ubero-Eurasian people. The DNA of the Ubero-Eurasian people, a prehistoric culture that produced microlithic stone tools, has revealed insights into their origins and ancestry. Ancestry. The Ubero-Eurasian people had a high proportion of Near Eastern ancestry and a strong connection to sub-Saharan populations. Haplogroups. The majority of Ubero-Eurasian people had the mtDNA or mitochondrial haplogroup U6, while one had M1 haplogroup. The African Y-DNA haplogroup EM78, EL618, and EM35 were also present. Origins. Ibero-Eurasian people may have developed independently in the Maghreb, Morocco, Algeria, and Tunisia. However, they may also have been influenced by people from Cyrenaica, which has older roots in Southeast Asia. Dating. The Ubero-Eurasian industry appeared in Toferot Cave, Morocco, at least 22,093 years and 21,420 years before present. The Ubero-Eurasian industry was a microlithic bladed culture that marked a shift in dietary practices and the appearance of potentially ritualized burials. My opponent has to account for a 284,000-year gap in the archaeological record between Jebel Irhoud and the rise of the Ubero-Eurasian industry. And he has to account for a 278,000-year gap in between the Jebel Irhoud fossils and Ubero-Eurasian DNA. The Ubero-Eurasians are the ancestors to the Berbers. The only way my Moorish opponent can account for these huge gaps in timelines is if he borrowed the keys from Marty McFly to the '86 DeLorean with the flex capacitor and went back in time. Another AI overview dealing with the DNA of the Ubero-Eurasians. DNA analysis of the Ubero-Eurasians, an ancient hunter-gatherer group of North Africa, has revealed several insights into their origins and ancestry. Ancestry. The Ubero-Eurasians had a high proportion of Near Eastern ancestry and shared about one-third of their genetic ancestry with sub-Saharan Africans. The sub-Saharan ancestry was most closely related to modern West Africans and the Hadza people of Tanzania. Connections. The Ibero-Eurasians were genetically close to Berbers from North Morocco and Tunisia and to some populations in southwestern Europe. This suggests that there was a broad Mediterranean mitochondrial gene pool that included populations from North Africa and southwestern Europe. Time. The Ubero-Eurasians had a connection with the Near East Natufian people that began around 15,000 years ago. This suggests that the connection between North Africa and the Near East began much earlier than previously thought. Migration. One theory is that groups of the Proto-U6 lineage spread from the Near East to North Africa around 40,000 to 45,000 years ago. Another theory is that there was a westward human migration from the Near East, followed by a demographic expansion centered on the Maghreb around 22,000 years ago. As we can see, even your mitochondrial DNA has a 255,000-year gap in between it and the Jebel Irhoud fossils. AI overview. Now keep in mind that these AI overviews are being pulled from sites and resources like sciencenews.com, Wikipedia, and the like, you know what I'm saying? So here are some genetic studies that relate to Berbers and other North African populations. Ancient genomes from North Africa. A study used a principal components analysis, PCA, to compare ancient samples with populations from the Human Genome Diversity Project. The study found that IAM samples, which are from Mozabites, a Berber group in southern Algeria, were close to other North African samples. Genetic studies on Moroccans. A 2012 study found that the indigenous Northwest African ancestry of Moroccans is closely related to populations outside of Africa. However, the study also found that the divergence between Moroccans and Near Eastern Europeans likely occurred before the Holocene and the Paleolithic. Ancient DNA sequencing study. A study published in Current Biology found that the Guanches, the aboriginal inhabitants of the Canary Islands, were genetically most similar to modern North African Berbers. Biomolecular insights into North African related ancestry. A study found that the genome of an 11th century CE man buried in Spain, that's you said y'all was in Spain, right, was a result of admixture between Amazigh people, Berbers, and the population that inhabited the peninsula before the Islamic conquest. This is another AI overview. This information is coming from nature.com and sciencedirect.com. EM81 is a Y chromosome haplogroup that is common in North Africa, particularly among Berber-speaking populations. Frequency. EM81 is the most common Y chromosome haplogroup in North Africa, with frequencies over 40% in the Maghreb and over 80% in some Berber groups, which is what we're talking about. Origin. EM81 may have originated in North Africa or the Levant around 5,600 years ago. Subclades. The most common subclade of EM81 is EM183, which is estimated to have originated 2,000 to 3,000 years ago. Distribution. EM81 is also found in Portugal, southern Spain, southern Italy, and the province region of France, where you say you were for 700 years. It has also been introduced into parts of Latin America and among Hispanic people in the USA. EM81 is thought to be associated with migrations related to the Islamic dispersals, which it is, as well as the Roman and Carthaginian expansions. Y haplogroup EM81 of the Berbers is only 5,600 years old, so it's 294,400 years too short, which leaves you with a huge gap. And EM81's most common subclade, EM183, is only 3,000 years old, which is 297,000 years too short, which leaves you with an even larger gap. I'm telling you, this is the only way, Silk. Let's get back to skull morphology, shall we? And how it was found that the Jebel Irhoud specimens differed in skull morphology than those of the Algerian and Ibero-Mauritian industries. This comes from Wikipedia. While the Jebel Irhoud specimens originally were noted to have been similar to later Algerian and Ibero-Mauritian specimens, further examinations revealed that the Jebel Irhoud specimens differ from them in that they have a continuous supraorbital torus, while the Algerian and Ibero-Mauritian specimens have a discontinuous supraorbital torus, or in some cases, none at all. And from this, it was concluded that the Jebel Irhoud specimens represent archaic Homo sapiens, again, represent archaic Homo sapiens, while the Algerian and Ibero-Mauritian specimens represent anatomically modern humans or anatomically modern Homo sapiens. That's a difference, Silk. Despite this, it was noted that the Jebel Irhoud specimens, whose cranium was complete enough to assess, showed hints of modern basicranial flexion in the relationship of the face and vault, and the teeth of another Jebel Irhoud specimen were subjected to synchrotron analysis that suggested a modern developmental pattern. These fossils are archaic Homo sapiens, not anatomically modern humans. Silk. Berbers are anatomically modern humans. AI overview is pulling information from nature.com and Wikipedia. The Jebel Irhoud fossils are associated with the Middle Stone Age archaeological industry, specifically characterized by lavalo technology. This is based on the stone tools found alongside the remains at the site in Morocco. Key points about Jebel Irhoud. Location: Morocco, North Africa. Significance: considered to be one of the oldest known Homo sapien fossil sites. Associated tools: lavalo technique stone tools. Berbers are associated with several archaeological industries in North Africa, including Tassili the Ager. Cave paintings in the region of southern Algeria, date back to 12,000 years ago. These paintings depict a Neolithic society that practiced domestication and subsistence agriculture. Tadroid, a caucus. Rock art has been discovered in this region of the Libyan desert. Ibero-Mauritian. This industry is characterized by a small toolkit including hammerstones, cores, blades, and tools for grinding colors. Caspian cultures. Groups associated with this culture of northeastern Africa introduced sheep and goats. Berbers are the indigenous people of North Africa and have a rich and ancient culture. Their economy was largely based on subsistence agriculture and pastoralism, but they also practice weaving, pottery, and metalwork. They are associated with the Caspian culture and Ibero-Mauritian culture, Tassili Ager and Tadrat Caucasus, but none of these cultures go back to the Middle Stone Age. On this AI overview, I basically just asked Google AI, are the Jebel Irhoud fossils Berber? And it responded like so. No, the fossils found at Jebel Irhoud in Morocco are from Homo sapiens, not Berbers. Fossils. The fossils found at Jebel Irhoud are from Homo sapiens and are dated to roughly 300,000 years ago. These fossils include skulls, teeth, and long bones from at least 5 individuals. Location: Jebel Irhoud is an archaeological site in Morocco located north of Tete Irhoud and about 50 kilometers southeast of Safi. Significance: the Jebel Irhoud fossils are significant because they are the oldest securely dated Homo sapien fossils ever found, and they challenge the theory that humans originated in East Africa. Comparison to other fossils: the Jebel Irhoud fossils are considered archaic Homo sapiens, again, are considered archaic Homo sapiens, while other specimens are considered anatomically modern Homo sapiens. Some researchers suggest that the Jebel Irhoud population was replaced by Homo sapiens from south of the Sahara. However, the Jebel Irhoud discovery have also led to new theories about the origins of humanity, including the idea that modern humans evolved across Africa, not just in East Africa. The Pan-African hypothesis. The Jebel Irhoud fossils and other evidence suggest that humans evolved across Africa rather than in a single cradle of life in East Africa. Earlier origins. The Jebel Irhoud fossils are some of the oldest known Homo sapien remains and suggest that our species evolved much earlier than previously thought. Dispersal within Africa. The Jebel Irhoud discoveries indicate that Homo sapiens dispersed across Africa around 300,000 years ago, long before they left Africa for the rest of the world. Evolutionary experimentation. The Jebel Irhoud fossils suggest that early humans evolved in multiple parts of Africa, swapping genes and tool technologies as they moved around the continent. The Jebel Irhoud fossils are anatomically different from modern humans. The Jebel Irhoud fossils, again, are anatomically different from modern humans with longer lower brain case, elongated temporal bones, and flatter parietal bones. Some say that the elongated cranium may have been one of the last things to evolve in the human line. According to current understanding, the ancestors of the Berber people, also known as Amazigh, are believed to have migrated into North Africa during the wet Sahara period, which was a time when the Sahara Desert was significantly wetter and more hospitable for human settlement, with this migration likely occurring around the early Holocene period, roughly 10,000 years ago, and spreading westward from the Nile Valley across the northern Sahara into the Maghreb region. Key points about this migration. Early presence. Evidence suggests that Berber ancestors were already inhabiting North Africa by the early Holocene, with their languages spreading westward from the Nile Valley. Linguistic connection. The Berber languages are part of the Afro-Asiatic language family, which also includes languages spoken in the Middle East and the Horn of Africa, further supporting a migration from the east. Archaeological evidence. Archaeological sites and remains across North Africa provide insights into the Berber ancestors' culture and settlement during this period. So, how were you in North Africa or Morocco 300,000 years ago when your ancestors migrated from the east during the Holocene period 10,000 years ago during the wet Sahara period? If your ancestors weren't even in Morocco 300,000 years ago, then Silk, how were you? My opponent has to account for a 284,000-year gap in the archaeological record between Jebel Irhoud and the rise of the Ibero-Mauritian industry. And he has to account for a 278,000-year gap in between the Jebel Irhoud fossils and Ibero-Mauritian DNA. The Ibero-Mauritians are the ancestors to the Berbers. As we can see, even your mitochondrial DNA has a 255,000-year gap in between it and the Jebel Irhoud fossils. Y haplogroup EM81 of the Berbers is only 5,600 years old, so it's 294,400 years too short, which leaves you with a huge gap. And EM81's most common subclade, EM183, is only 3,000 years old, which is 297,000 years too short, which leaves you with an even larger gap. The only way my Moorish opponent can account for these huge gaps in timelines is if he borrowed the keys from Marty McFly to the 86 DeLorean with the flex capacitor and went back in time. My opponent has no choice but to come at y'all with an army of mass logical fallacies. Here are the logical fallacies in insisting Jebel Irhoud fossils are Berber Moors. 1. Anachronistic fallacy. Applying modern ethnic labels, Berber or Moor, to ancient fossils 300,000 years old. 2. Geographical fallacy. Assuming location, Morocco determines ethnicity. 3. Temporal fallacy. Ignoring time gaps between Jebel Irhoud 300,000 years and Berber emergence 2,500 to 3,000 years. 4. Cultural association fallacy. Linking ancient fossils to modern cultural groups without evidence. 5. Ancestral assumption fallacy. Assuming direct ancestry between ancient and modern populations. 6. Lack of archaeological evidence. No direct connection between Jebel Irhoud fossils and Berber artifacts. 7. Genetic oversimplification. Ignoring genetic diversity and complex population dynamics. 8. Historical ignorance. Disregarding historical migrations, admixture, and population replacements. Fallacy of consequences. 1. Misrepresentation of history. 2. Cultural misappropriation. 3. Oversimplification of complex genetics. Consider multiple sources, Silk. Evaluate evidence objectively, Silk. Avoid assumptions because your assumptions lead to pseudo scholarship and a big fat L against King Naga.